Came in from the wilderness, a creature void of form. Come in, she said, I'll give you shelter from the storm.
One of the positives of the streaming era has been the growing popularity of documentaries, and thus the funding and availability of a historically underserved art form. Documentaries are a vital source of education that often give us an empathetic lens into experiences different than our own. But I don't think most hold the power to change hearts and minds. Surprisingly, I think Will Ferrell's new documentary may be the rare one that has the power to do just that. Will and Harper garnered rave reviews earlier this year at the Sundance Film Festival and is now streaming on Netflix. Much of its power, I think, comes from its structure. It is first and foremost a road trip movie between friends, and that trip contains all the wonderful needle drops, beautiful landscapes, emotional storytelling, and fun comedy you'd expect from such a film. Will Ferrell is, of course, a major Hollywood movie star, who's been in some of the biggest comedies of my lifetime, but he started his career on Saturday Night Live. There he became close friends with a writer on staff that would later be known as Harper Steele. At SNL and for much of their friendship, Ferrell knew Steele as a man. But during the pandemic, he received a letter in which she came out to him as transgender and asked to be called Harper. The film opens with her reading that letter and Ferrell detailing his reaction, which was one of surprise, confusion, care, and acceptance. She confides to him that she now feels uneasy traveling the country as she once loved to do, fearing that her identity may make her a target of hatred and discrimination. So Ferrell proposes a crazy idea. Why don't they take a road trip together so she has someone to lean on if situations get dicey, and they can grow closer as friends now that he knows who she truly is. What I think makes this documentary so powerful is that Ferrell is not the perfect ally. He struggles through the right things to say, has difficulty at times fully understanding what Harper is going through, and his celebrity, while at times a shield, also unintentionally gets them into painful situations. But that celebrity is also the reason I think the film may speak to so many people who would otherwise never watch a documentary about the trans experience. A film in which the guy from Anchorman walks the audience through the experience of a loved one coming out as trans, I think that has the power to break through. But the film would be nothing without Harper. She and Ferrell have the wonderfully comedic chemistry you would expect from SNL alums, and Harper has a very down-to-earth way of talking to folks, which at times leads to some surprisingly positive interactions. She also is very knowledgeable about her community and makes important connections to the broader political climate trans folks exist in that Ferrell often misses. Plus, though the narrative is obviously dictated by the geography of the trip, director Josh Greenbaum does a fantastic job of crafting a satisfying arc that had me both laughing and sobbing throughout. As I look back on this film I watched weeks before our recent presidential election, I find myself both more certain of its power and deeply terrified of what a Trump presidency will mean for trans people. If you watched any television over the last several months, you likely saw some of the $250 million ad campaign Republicans ran vilifying trans people. And now those disgusting monsters are in charge. As is discussed in the film, there have already been numerous anti-trans laws passed across the country, banning drag, restricting public bathroom access, and prohibiting gender-affirming care for trans kids. Donald Trump has promised to federally prohibit education about trans issues and restrict gender-affirming care for kids and adults. Besides these extremely dire policy changes, Republicans are also likely to double down on their hateful rhetoric after their victory, which will only further legitimize transphobia in this country. Of course, while folks like Harper will likely face increased transphobia, as she acknowledges in the film, her class may shield her from some of what is to come. It is people like Dana Garber that I'm most concerned for. A soft-spoken trans activist Will and Harper meet in Peoria, Illinois, Garber also came out later in life. In an incredibly emotional scene, she and Harper bond over the experience of starting hormone therapy, and Garber tells them it has been an experience that quite literally saved her life. Which is not surprising, as numerous studies tell us that gender-affirming care decreases suicidality tremendously. In Garber, I see many of the trans folks I know, who would be deprived of life-saving and life-improving care, and perhaps even targeted for their activism. One scene in particular illustrates how the Republicans' obsessive hate campaign amplifies resentment against trans people. As the duo are driving through Texas, Ferrell suggests that they stop at a steakhouse. While they're there, the feeling in the room quickly turns sour, as Ferrell's fame has put them in a fishbowl, and Harper can feel the judgmental eyes of the patrons zero in on her. On social media, the bigotry is even more pronounced, as trolls sling transphobic insults at both her and Ferrell. Afterward, Ferrell is beside himself with regret for inadvertently putting his friend in such a position, and deeply disturbed by the experience coming face to face with the animosity trans people are subjected to in this country. But while Will and Harper contends with the darkness of this moment, it also offers a ray of hope. Before her transition, Harper frequented dive bars and racetracks across the country, places that are typically quite conservative. But as the two friends visit those places, she is struck by how overwhelmingly accepting people turn out to be. It's not perfect, as some folks struggle with her pronouns, there are a few snide comments, and not everyone speaks in the most enlightened manner. But on the whole, people are fairly kind. At the racetrack, she confides to a father there with his young son that she was fearful of coming to places like these. He tells her not to be afraid and asks her if she's happy. She, of course, is, and he tells her that's all that really matters. This moment, I think, is a reflection of the attitude most people have in this country. They may not understand trans people, and may even hold some regressive views, but are perfectly fine with people doing whatever it is that makes them happy. It's this moment that also forces Harper to reckon with an even more insidious part of transphobia in America, as she realizes that part of her fear of living her truth in public is internalized hatred of herself. For those who are grappling with their relationship with a family member or friend who has transitioned, my hope is that this film may serve as a useful guide. That by watching Will Ferrell lead with empathy, even while making mistakes, they may learn to accept the trans folks in their life and lend them the support that they need. For trans folks, my hope is that this serves as a reminder that it is never too late to start living your truth proudly. And for America, my hope is that we come to understand that this country may have deep problems, that hate certainly exists, but that so many in this country just want to live and let live. Will and Harper shows that this country is more tolerant than Republicans like to imagine it to be. That despite spending hundreds of millions of dollars disgustingly demonizing trans people over the last several election cycles, many Americans just want their neighbors to be happy. And my ultimate hope is that during this difficult time, we can come together to support, protect, and encourage our trans neighbors and beat back the hatred that has been legitimized from the top. I'm giving Will and Harper 4.5 out of 5 stars. It is currently streaming on Netflix.